On August 9, 2024, a heavy rainstorm struck Beijing, China, flooding the streets. People who were working found that when they got back to their homes in Changping after work, they had to wade through water. The rainstorm caused the drainage system in Beijing to collapse, with standing water on the streets reaching thigh-deep and roads being closed throughout the area. Jilin province has been hit by a flood, with residents' homes being submerged. The culprit behind the flood was the release of water from a reservoir. The Fangmen Reservoir in Jilin City began releasing water on July 31, 2024, and stopped on August 7.
已经放了24个小时了，24个小时。今天和昨天应该差不太多，也是在每秒3000到4000粒左右。没开闸，所有的丰满大坝坝体上的闸门都没有开，而是通过下方的导流洞在排水。吉林省吉林市的丰满大坝。
This video shows that due to the flood discharge from the Fangmen Reservoir, homes and people's properties downstream have been inundated and destroyed. The Jilin Provincial Water Resources Department has stated on social media that the Songhua River, Dongliao River, La Lin River, and Yinma River levels have all exceeded their warning levels. There are 25 reservoirs currently orderly discharging water. Local residents say that due to the flood discharge from the Fangmen Reservoir, the most severely affected areas in Jilin Province are Linjiang City and Badagu Town in Changping County. There, the riverside houses have all been submerged and the roadbeds in Linjiang City and Badagu have been completely destroyed by the flood. Underground pipelines have been washed up to the road surface. This is Taihu in Linjiang City, where many houses were submerged by floodwaters, with only the rooftops remaining visible. Some sources suggested that the Songhua River is so swollen this time not because of rainfall, but because of the reservoir discharge in Jilin, which has been going on for a week. The flood caused by the discharge from the Fangmen Reservoir has led to a large and prolonged disaster in the surrounding areas. There is growing skepticism about the effectiveness of reservoirs' operation. Some netizens have commented sarcastically. The new function of a reservoir is to store water during dry periods and release it during very rainy times. There were people asking, where was the yearly emergency and infrastructure funds spent? And some have expressed their dissatisfaction. The reservoir's function appears to release water when there is no shortage and store water when it's dry. Theoretically, reservoirs are designed to store and release the treated water during emergencies such as droughts and catch floods by retaining water during the rainy season. However, in China, water stored in the reservoirs is practically sold to farmers in need, while during the rainy season, the water is released to prevent the dam and reservoir failures. This practice has become a significant reason for frequent floods in many parts of China, causing severe disasters for residents. Mr. Jin from Jilin City said, the Fangmen hydropower station has been discharging water continuously, flooding downstream areas like Dehui, Songyuan, and Fuyu, and the upstream areas are not any better, with flooded places like Jiaohe and Huadian. The farmers are the hardest hit. Several of my clients there are suffering huge losses. It's been 13 days of flooding now, and it's basically beyond rescue. This video shows the scene of the flooding in rural areas of Hunan City, Jilin Province.
房子走了，看着没？
看着了，看着了。哎，我的棒棒也得完了。
看见没有？这房子都冲走了，房子还在水里。
It's reported that China has nearly 100,000 reservoirs, many of which have quality issues due to various reasons. A Chinese water resources expert estimates that 3/4 of these reservoirs are at the brink of collapsing, with many having exceeded their intended lifespan. Why aren't these problematic reservoirs demolished? It turns out that under the pretext of repairs, the local county officials can get substantial annual funding from the upper-level governments. It's estimated that in recent years, around US $139.5 billion per year has been allocated on treating the so-called diseased and dangerous reservoirs. What does US $139.5 billion per year mean realistically? Some Chinese citizens calculated that adding a little more funding to that, the country would have enough to provide free healthcare for its 1.4 billion people. Meanwhile, that amount of funding seems to yield little actual improvement, and the number of unsafe reservoirs continues to grow, increasing the risk of floods. On August 6, 2024, a sudden heavy rainstorm hit Shenzhen, Guangdong province. The strong winds tore down billboards, uprooted several large trees, and some areas even experienced hail. The local meteorological department reported that 748 lightning strikes were recorded across the city by noon on that day. In the early hours of August 3, 2024, a massive flash flood and mudslides suddenly struck a town in Kongding City, Sichuan province. The official figure released on August 5th stated that the disaster had resulted in 10 deaths and 17 people missing. 4 vehicles have fallen off a bridge. Local residents reported that the actual number of casualties and damaged cars were higher than the official figures. This video shows the scene in the area after the mudslide occurred. This video shows the scene of a mudslide in a nearby village. At 4:30 a.m. on August 3, 2024, a section of a highway in Sichuan province collapsed. It's reported that a mudslide occurred ahead and some vehicles were swept away. A large number of cars were trapped in a tunnel, creating a terrifying scene. Northwest China's Gansu province also faced severe flooding. On August 7, 2024, the water level of the Malian River in Qingyang City, Gansu, suddenly surged. Floods rushed in and poured out of residents' homes, turning city streets into a sea, and several cars were submerged. Starting from August 8, 2024, Hunan City in Shaanxi province was once again hit by a severe rainstorm. The maximum rainfall in Jilin County reached 179.1 millimeters, breaking historical records. In the following video, a large number of cars were swept away by the flood, piling up and creating what looks like islands. Some residents exclaim that the scene resembles a doomsday movie. Flooding in Hunan province has been devastating as well. On August 2nd, a user posted on X, "Reservoirs discharged water, hydropower station sluice gates were shut, and dikes now are breached everywhere. Our officials have been completely inactive. There was no announcement on preparation beforehand, no response during the disaster, and no rescue actions afterwards. Even now, the roads leading to the disaster area have not been fully restored. It's like a scene from an apocalyptic movie." The video shared by the user shows the scene of the flooding in the area. On August 1st, 2024, officials in Hunan reported that 65 people were either dead or missing in Jilin City. Local disaster victims indicated that the actual number of deaths and missing persons is higher. Mr. Li, a resident of Jilin, said, "Everything along the river is gone, all washed away. Missing persons cannot be found, and the number of deaths is now reported to be in the triple digits." According to residents of Jilin City, Hunan, due to the reservoir discharge, dozens of villages in the area were submerged. Because of the lack of timely rescue, many survivors in the floodwaters starved to death. Mr. Chen, a survivor from the area, said, "People are still searching for the missing, but the chances are slim. Today, we found a family of 6 who had perished. Everything was washed away, there was no food, and too many people starved to death. A friend's aunt was swept away by the water, and her husband suffered starvation. An elderly person in Shaanxi starved to death after a few days since the flood. His own children couldn't reach him on foot, and by the time they arrived, he was already gone. It's too tragic, it's hard to even talk about. These survivors managed to avoid the flood, but did not receive the necessary government aid, leading to doubts about whether the Chinese Communist Party is merely pretending to assist disaster victims. Such incidents have previously been exposed online. In late July 2023, Zhuangzhou City in Hebei Province experienced severe flooding, but key officials, including the mayor, were nowhere to be spotted by the public. There was even minimal presence of rescue personnel. However, right after the floodwaters receded, fully armed troops were seen walking through the streets carrying red flags, leading to speculation that they were there more for maintaining stability than for disaster relief. In Zhuangzhou City, where some areas have already seen the floodwaters recede, local officials in Hebei Province appeared in these cleanup areas to stage photo ops. The video shows the highest-ranking officials of the Hebei Provincial Committee of the CCP escorted by a large number of public security police inspecting a flood-affected community in Zhuangzhou. The silt at the site had just been cleaned up. When a member of the public attempted to film the scene with a smartphone, a man in a white shirt immediately stepped forward to block the recording. The video's subtitle reads, "The floodwaters have receded, the roads have been cleaned, and the officials have made an appearance." Amid the questions of the people, the official had no choice but to leave. It seems that the disaster victims who have undergone extreme hardship are fully aware of how out of touch the government support really is.
这是8月2号啊，这是涿州市政府啊，新闻上说的武警官兵一线抗洪的大堤前沿啊。8月2号，这是朱庄村东，目测100米沙带，有地方平铺一层，这就是抗洪一线的现场。 涿州市政府大力宣传的啊。
Instead of rescuing victims, the Chinese officials and police officers are often seen staging photos to showcase their accomplishments in front of the flood havoc. It happened during last year's major flood, and now again this year. On April 21st, 2024, a video on X shows a traffic police officer directing vehicles in heavy rain, which was artificially created. This video, filmed in early July 2024, shows some police officers and workers filling bags with stones. There is also a boss-like person standing above and overseeing the project. It can also be seen that a woman in a public security uniform is filming the scene. A netizen commented, "I wonder which one of these stage performers will be the next flood-fighting hero." The following video also appears to be filmed in July 2024. It shows an elderly man struggling to hold onto the edge of stone steps in the water, waiting for rescue. Two policemen slowly approach him and try to grab his hand, but fail somewhat. While the elderly man is swept away by the flood, the two officers, seemingly unconcerned, just stand there and watch the whole time. Netizens commented, "So indifferent, look at how relaxed they are, this is a human life. It would have been easy to pull the person up by just going down for a few more steps. Are they afraid of getting their shoes wet? What was initially seen as a glimmer of hope turned out to be despair. This is the true value of the Chinese Communist Party." The following video shows that a police officer at the riverbank is holding onto another police officer while fetching the flag of China. The former then washes the flag in the water before bringing it back to the shore. In front of the camera, the police officer says, "While patrolling along the river, we found a national flag in the water. I immediately went down to pick up the flag." The officer also mentioned that everyone had the responsibility and obligation to protect the national flag. Perhaps in the minds of Chinese police officers, a flag is more important than a human's life. In the face of the flood, Chinese government officials have become increasingly perfunctory. In recent years, they have been avoiding visiting disaster areas and checking on the situation of the victims. As in previous years, they have continued the efforts to cover up the true number of casualties in the flood. That's all for today. If you like our program, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for your support, and see you next time.